Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to LLB with Fatah Khan. Hi, I'm Fatah Khan, a mid career transformation coach, a TEDx speaker, a best selling author, and also a podcaster, the host of this podcast, LLB with Fatah Khan. So, what does LLB stands for? LLB stands for Legendary Leadership Bites. Right? And why did I start this particular podcast, or why did I enter into leadership coaching? The reason is I was there in the corporate world for 17 long years, in which about 7 plus years I was in different leadership roles, and I realized there were so many mistakes that I did in the leadership, and there were so many things that I was struggling in the leadership role. And I realized there are a lot of people in the mid careers who are able to go to the leadership level, but they are not able to perform to the best. And that's where I realized there is a huge need of great leaders, legendary leaders, and that became my mission of how do I help to transform the mid-career professionals into legendary leaders. With that passion and purpose, 4 years back I quit my high-paying job and started to follow my passion to transform mid-career professionals into legendary leaders. And this is one of the initiative of the same. So today we have a very interesting topic and something that is a common question which a lot of people have, especially the aspiring leaders. What is this topic? This topic is, what do all great leaders have in common? Right? Because we need to understand this, right? When we are able to understand the great things of great leaders, like what are the things that are actually there in common, that will help us to actually go ahead and build those traits. Because leadership, let's all understand, leadership is not just a title or a position, right? It is not just about the skills that a person has. Leadership is much beyond that. And if you have to look at great leaders, and if you have to look at what are the things common, especially we can look at the attributes that are common so that we can also bring those attributes in our life and become great leaders like others. And of course, go beyond that and become legendary leaders. So, what are these attributes? The number one and the most critical attribute for any leader is to be a visionary. So, one of the attribute is visionary thinking. If you see any great leaders in the history, right? All these great leaders, starting from, like, even if you talk about Mahatma Gandhi ji, great leader, he was a visionary, he had a vision. If you talk about Nelson Mandela, he had a vision. If you talk about Elon Musk today, has a vision. If you talk about Bill Gates, if you talk about Steve Jobs, if you talk about Jeff Bezos, right? If you talk about anybody, if you talk about some of the great leaders from history, right? All these leaders are the ones who have actually has this trait of visionary thinking. So if you meet the great leaders, you will see that they are visionary, right? They have a vision, they have a clear vision, which is like driven by a purpose. And when they are clear about their vision, that's what inspires people to connect with them and to follow that leader. So one of the basic trait or the most important trait is visionary thinking. If I have to give by the example of Elon Musk, think about it. Elon Musk, who is the founder of Tesla and SpaceX, he had this visionary thinking which has revolutionized the automotive and space industry. Right? He is a visionary who thought big and who had a vision and who started working on this vision. And that's what makes him unique. And that is the common attribute of all the great leaders. Now, number two is empathy and emotional intelligence. If you see, all the great leaders have this common attribute of emotional intelligence. They're emotionally intelligent because if you see leadership, it's not just about tool, product, process, systems. It is much beyond that. And the biggest challenge that any leader would face is people. Right? Because after a certain level, even if you are a mid-career professional, after a certain level, you realize that it is all about people, 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 right? The problems about people, the solutions, the challenges, everything is about people. So great leaders are emotionally intelligent. If I have to take from the example of Satya Nadella, right? As a CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella empathized the importance of has emphasized the importance of empathy in leadership. And if you have read this beautiful books of emotional intelligence by Daniel Goleman, he brings the importance of emotional leadership, emotional intelligence in leadership. And if you see today, some of the best institutions and the universities are talking about emotional intelligence in leadership. And if you see, this is one of the common trait you can see in the great leaders who are always emotionally intelligent. So that's the second thing, right? Which is empathy and emotional intelligence. What is the third thing? The third attribute is resilience in adversity. Now we all know, right? Life is not going to be smooth all the time. Business is not going to be smooth all the time. There will be ups and downs, there will be failures, there will be setbacks, there will be challenges. But great leaders are the ones who are actually resilient in adversity. They see challenges, they stand strong, right? They see certain thing is not working, they stand strong, right? They are resilient in adversity. If I have to take the example of Indra Nooyi, right, a beautiful example of how she actually, when she was the first, she is more of the former CEO of PepsiCo. If you see from the example of Indra Nooyi, the resilience was evident in steering the company through a changing market, right? If you remember, the market was changing. And this is not only with Pepsi, right? This is not only with Indra Nooyi. If you see all the great leaders, right, they have gone through challenges. Like if you remember from the life of Steve Jobs, right, he was thrown out of his own company, right? Isn't it like the biggest challenge of his life? But he stood strong and he came back, and he came back much stronger. That is one of the great attributes of the greatest leaders. Like if you remember, right, even if you remember Amitabh Bachchan, right, one of the famous actors or one of the famous celebrities of the Indian market, right, of the Indian cinema, right, he also went through adversity. One of the famous celebrity, and he was bankrupt. But what did he do? He fought. He did not see setback as a problem, a challenge. He saw that as an opportunity. He fought back. So all the great leaders, if you see, right, they are the ones who actually are resilient in adversity. Now, number four is inspirational communication. If you want to be great leader, I can't insist on this point again and again, but this is again very important. This is the foundation. It is communication, and as a great leader you need to be inspirational communicator, right? When you talk, you need to inspire people. Do you remember Martin Luther King Jr., when he used to speak, one of the best speeches, right, that we all remember all the time? I have a dream, right? With that one speech, he was able to influence people, he was able to inspire people, he created a movement out of it. That's inspirational communication. And if you remember Steve Jobs, the speeches, whether it was the launch of Apple products, right, or whether it was the he gave on the graduation ceremony, right, one of his beautiful speech, all these are inspirational communicators. So if you want to be a great leader, you have to be a great communicator. In fact, you have to be an inspirational communicator. When you speak, people be inspired by you, people move, right, people take action. That's how you need to become. So that's where, if you have a challenge, the communication skill, that's one of the core skills that you need to work on to become a great leader. And number five, and the last one, is commitment to continuous learning. Now, one of the big challenge why people become stagnant or why people fall down after a rise in their careers, right, is because people stop learning. Think of this. Today everything is changing at a very fast pace. The technology is changing, right? Everything is changing, like technology, products, tools, processes, people. Things are changing at a very fast pace. And if you think that you know everything and you stop your learning, that's where your growth will stop, right? So great leaders are always great, like learners. If you remember, like what even Steve Jobs says or Bill Gates says, right, or even if you think of Warren Buffett and all these great leaders, they are continuous learners. They might be the best in their industry, but still continuous learner. They don't stop learning at all, right? All these great leaders are continuous learners. So if you want to become a great leader, if you want to bring these attributes which are common in great leaders in your life, you need to work on these five attributes. To remind you once again and to summarize, these five attributes that are common in all the great leaders and can make you also a great leader are: number one, visionary thinking; number two, empathy and emotional intelligence; number three, resilience in adversity; number four, inspirational communication; and number five, commitment to continuous learning. If you are able to do this, I'm sure you will be able to become a legendary leader. And with that, we conclude this episode. and best wishes for you to become a legendary leader. And if you are committed to become a legendary leader, continue to be here in the universe of learning, because I'm going to share everyday leadership tips, especially the tips on how do you transform from a mid-career professional to become a legendary leader. Thank you for listening, and see you soon in the next episode.